Blog Talk Radio.
The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat.
Welcome to Truth Talk.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
With Paul Webster.
First year of global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis.
And Chance George.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it.
On Global F.A.C.T Radio.
Nope, no weapons over there.
People who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
conspiracy theories.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Maybe under here.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in...
Evan, would you agree that that's a conspiracy, what he was saying?
Well, I gotta say, Chance, I used to share the same viewpoint as Ainsworth, and I have all respect for him. And but there's an important distinction between a popular conspiracy and a criminal conspiracy. Now, if you want me to elaborate on that, I can. But
sure, go ahead.
A popular conspiracy, when it comes down to it, it's an unfounded rumor. It relies on circular reasoning, on unsubstantiated claims, and it's almost like Bertrand Russell's argument out of ignorance, meaning if it can't be proven false, then it's true. If it can't be proven true, then it's false, and it's a double negative. And meanwhile, a criminal conspiracy, people are convicted of those every day in our legal system, and it relies on the laws of evidence. And just two things I want to point to real quick is that, one of the orchestrators of 9/11, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and four of his accomplices were indicted and charged on this criminal conspiracy. It was one of their charges among war crimes, murder. But they pled guilty, and it relies on the laws of evidence. And I know that there's a couple of different things people might say. Well, it was in a military tribunal. They dismissed it in order to go to a civilian court to try them legally, fairly. And
how many times was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed waterboarded?
I really can't speak on that matter, but they did plead guilty, and they refused legal counsel. They refused to answer questions for the judge. And, I mean, I can understand during a time of interrogation they're being waterboarded, they're being tortured, which we know exists, which we know they admitted to it. But in a courtroom, a whole separate environment, and just refusing to answer questions and pleading guilty, that pretty much shows their guilt. And another case I'd like to point to is April Gallup, who was a Pentagon employee, as Ainsworth probably knows. And now she's tried to sue a couple different people over 9/11, and one of them was American Airlines, and the other case where she was trying to sue the U.S. government and George Bush and Cheney, as you probably heard. Now, there was no evidence for suing Cheney and Bush and the government, so that case was dismissed. However, she was able to settle with American Airlines. So when it comes to legal conspiracy, it's pretty clear that a lot of the conspiracy we call as 9/11, the theories, they're unfounded. Okay.
Well, I do find the fact that she's trying to sue American Airlines kind of strange, especially when she said that there's really no evidence of a plane.
Well, I mean, me and you and Ainsworth, we both know that. I mean, it's a typical American greedy thing to, people sue everything for everyone. I'm not gonna. People
sue for all sorts of reasons that make no sense. Anyway, let's review the events.
So wait, would you agree with me that there's an important distinction between popular conspiracy and criminal conspiracy?
There's always a difference between a popular conspiracy and a criminal conspiracy.
Well, when I say popular conspiracy, I mean moon landing and
I don't go into. I don't like to digress. I hate to say that I'm myopic, simple-minded, and that I put blinders on, but I don't go off onto other tangents. It's not something that has any interest to me.
No, I'm not
to
trying
the
to elaborate.
subject
I'm just saying what I'm trying to say is the difference between a popular conspiracy and a criminal conspiracy, meaning a conspiracy to commit murder.
Well, this is a criminal conspiracy. Taking over four airliners with box cutters would be a criminal conspiracy, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And having it as a coordinated crime, that would be a conspiracy also. So the official story is, by definition, a conspiracy theory.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Well, no, not a theory, because they were charged with the crimes. They admitted to the crimes, and actually,
no one who was on those planes, no one who was on those planes was charged with any crime. They're all dead if they were there.
That Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was coerced into this. You're implying
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded 183 times.
But sir, are you aware that he did an interview with Al Jazeera and admitted to the attacks and told them how he did it?
He might admit to anything after he'd been held under detention under those circumstances.
But in an interview with a news agency.
All right. Apparently, I left both the microphones open, and you guys started the open debate before we got through the very first point.
Okay.
Anyway, I've hardly gotten a chance to get going with things.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, just so that we can stick to a little bit of format. If either one of you guys want to say something and your microphone is not muted or is not on, type into your window buzzer on the chat room, and I'll watch. And when you have something to say, then I'll bring you up right away. But we're gonna let Ainsworth go for 2 minutes on his first point. Paul's got his stopwatch already out and ready to go. Thanks, Paul. So Ainsworth, get his first point going. We'll give you 2 minutes to bring up your first point and get through that one, and then we're gonna give Evan 2 minutes to kind of debunk that, and then when you're done, both having no interruptions, then we'll get into a little bit of a back and forth, just so that we don't have any talking over talking and not following each other. So Ainsworth, you've got 2 minutes on your first point. All right, let's try that.
Okay. Just be aware I'm not logged in. I'm not on Skype, so I'm not going to play games with the computer on that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anyway, my first point here is that I want to review the events of 9/11 according to the official conspiracy theory. The crash of two airliners into the Twin Towers and the ensuing fires from jet fuel caused so much structural damage and heat that each of the Twin Towers collapsed in a matter of seconds, pulverizing their contents into dust and ejecting a 4-ton section of steel 600 feet away onto the roof of the World Financial Center's Winter Garden. The Twin Towers had 200,000 tons of structural steel, 43,600 windows, 600,000 square feet of glass, 5 million square feet of gypsum, 6 acres of marble, and 425,000 cubic yards of cured concrete in their floor pans. Add to that thousands of people, furniture, computers, telephones, carpeting, ceiling toilets, you name it, you have a much larger mass. Much of this was molecularly dissociated into an ultrafine powder dust, according to the Delta Group of the University of California, Davis, where the majority of the particles were between 0.24 and 0.09 micrometer in diameter. This all happened in less than 20 seconds per tower. Jet fuel and gravity can't do that. The huge clouds of dust made downtown Manhattan look like nuclear winter. I question how many kilotons of conventional explosives it would have taken to do that, if it was even possible with conventional explosives. Next, even though the Pentagon is the center of national defense, there isn't a single video or still picture showing the 155-foot-long, 44-foot-high commercial airliner hitting a building at subsonic speed. The Pentagon's
All right, we got you right at the 2 minutes there, and you were just about to jump to a second point, so that's a good spot to stop you. So I'm going to turn Evan's mic back on, and let's see if we can give him 2 minutes to comment on that very first point. It's a good thing we didn't jump into the Pentagon right away, because we'd be a whole other point, and he'd need 2 more minutes. So what do you think about that, Evan?
Well, forgive me, I don't have a rehearsed script here written out or anything, but I'll comment briefly on what I do know is that.
Well, you're just rebutting what he says, so.
Yeah,
so
well,
really
basically. He alludes that this is only possible if there was explosives planted, and the thing about WTC is in normal office fires, okay, the flames have time to spread out evenly amongst the floors, okay. The designers of the World Trade Center had no was no possible way to design a building to withstand a 10,000-gallon jet fuel Molotov cocktail on the floors. And so, everything, it was a very rapidly progressing fire. Okay, the outer columns were taken out by the impact, and so then they transferred the weight to other columns. What we got to remember is that this building, they didn't have adequate fire suppression systems at that time. They just didn't exist. And when the joist gave way, and each floor could only support the floor above it, and 10-plus floors above that fell on top of that one, the building gave way. It buckled at the impact points. And a 500,000-ton structure like that, I hear a lot of people say, well, why didn't it fall sideways? It was designed to fall straight down. A building that size, it has way too much inertia to fall anywhere but straight down. And since the building was supposed to be revolutionary at the time, it was a new technique for skyscrapers. It was an egg crate construction. It was 95% air, so it imploded on itself and fell straight into its own footprint. And as far as the explosives, those theories have sunk in the scientific community like a stone. NIST spent $20 million investigating 9/11, and a lot of truthers aren't even aware what thermite is. It's 8 parts iron oxide to 3 parts aluminum. You have the aluminum from the plane, you have the rust from the columns and metal components of the building, and those chips that these people are saying, they could have come from anything, and there wasn't even a formal investigation done regarding thermite.
All right. Now, that was a quick little 2-minute prelude to not being cut off. I'm sure Ainsworth has quite a few rebuttals to that already, so why don't we give you guys a little bit of a back and forth at the moment. So both your mics are open. Ainsworth, is there something that stands out to you in that statement?
Well, I have a number of comments that stand out in that. First off, the majority of the jet fuel, according to NIST, burned off in fires external to the buildings. And the amazing thing is that the second...
I don't understand how it was external to the building.
Well, do you remember the big fireball scene on TV?
That was the initial impact, but the majority, these were cross-country planes, commercial airlines, that went in the building.
They weren't fully loaded, and they were not loaded with as much fuel as they could carry in order to maximize their
you're
fuel
quoting
efficiency.
NIST, I assume you believe NIST is a credible source for this information, since you quoted them?
I believe that some of the things that NIST and FEMA put forth have accuracy to them. I've read all of their reports. I also believe that there are errors and omissions in NIST's reports, and there are issues with NIST reports that I can take up and will.
Okay, well, what they didn't omit was that a 10,000-gallon Molotov cocktail was dropped on the floor of that building.
It wasn't dropped on the floor of either building. One was hit on a very high upper floor, and the other one was hit diagonally on a somewhat lower floor, and most of the jet fuel that hit in that one exited to the east of the building in a huge fireball seen on TV.
And which building are you referring to?
I'm talking about the second attack, 2 World Trade Center, the one that was hit second, where all the TV cameras and everybody's private cameras were turned onto it. I believe there's actually even a video on YouTube that shows that building being hit from 42 different camera angles or something crazy like that. And that particular video, which supports people that I know that saw the planes hit the towers, takes it from a variety of cameras which were both network and private individuals. When that big fireball burned off externally to the building, all the fuel that burned off in that couldn't have done any damage to the interior of the building.
You can't burn off 10,000 gallons of jet fuel by impact.
Well, NIST actually talks about the majority of the jet fuel
which you
burning
quoted
off.
as a credible source. So you're quoting NIST as a credible source, and then you're saying they're not credible, and they lied about.
I will say that NIST is a mixed bag. That's the best review I can give to them.
Well, sir, if it's a mixed bag, why are you quoting facts and figures from them?
I am willing to study the issue as best I can from the available source material. And I recognize that all I have to do is look with my own eyes to the video of the plane hitting the South Tower and watching that fireball and recognizing that after that, the building was not a raging inferno, but had a dark, black, smoky set of fires. And
yes,
listen to
you know that's consistent with fuel-rich fires, not oxygen-rich, but fuel-rich, the black flames.
Yes, black smoke is burning inefficiently, very poorly. If I have a beach fire and I build
that doesn't mean it's burning poorly, Ainsworth. That means it's not oxygen-rich when it burns black.
It means it's burning inefficiently. If it's burning efficiently, it doesn't. The burner on my stove burns a blue flame.
You mean when it's being fired into the fuel injectors of a plane? Well, of course, then it's burning efficiently. It's not designed to be used as a bomb. Okay, so the black smoke. I'll just agree with you to disagree for now, but that's consistent with an oxygen poor fire.
I agree that it was oxygen-starved, burning very inefficiently, because it can't burn efficiently if it's oxygen-starved. You need both fuel and air to burn efficiently.
Nevertheless, you'd agree it's flammable, though, and can burn.
Oh, I would definitely agree that kerosene or jet fuel, which are very similar substances, are very flammable. No question about it. Not a matter of debate there. I will say that the plane that hit the South Tower hit it at an angle coming from the south heading northeast, and that when it hit the South Tower, it didn't hit it dead center. It hit it off to the east side
of the south face. This is WTC-1 you're referring to, right?
No, I'm returning to 2 World Trade Center, the South Tower. 1 World Trade Center is the North Tower. I know these buildings well. I actually worked in them. I did a microwave site survey outside of the 110th floor of 2 World Trade Center at one point in my career. Fascinating building. The entry to go to the outside engineering section, you had to pass through a hermetically sealed antechamber, what was a barometric chamber, so you didn't get sucked outside. You pushed a button on the inside. You watched mercury in 2 tubes equalize.
If you don't mind me asking, what capacity did you work in the building as?
I was working as a contractor, as a microwave engineer at that time. I worked for a company called Local Area Telecommunications, or Locate.
Okay, so are you aware of the design of the building?
I've studied the design of the building more since the event of 9/11. I was not an architect or an engineer that helped build the building. So,
okay, so are you aware that the building was only designed to withstand a 3-hour fire?
No, that's
the
not
one you're
entirely true.
Yes, it is, because it didn't have the adequate fire suppression system at the time. It was only designed to last 3 hours, according to NIST, which you said is a mixed bag.
Are you aware of the fact that there was a fire that lasted a lot more than 3 hours in the 1970s in the building?
Yes, sir, but you're referring to the one in Spain, right?
No, I'm talking about the World Trade Center.
You're aware that was a regular office fire, though, right?
Yeah, still a fire.
Okay, so an office fire, a typical office fire based on paper, it spreads evenly throughout the building.
Well, the NIST report talks about the actual fire being started by the jet fuel and then turning into office fires, but I digress.
All right. I'm going to cut you guys off for 1 second. This is a great debate here. Everyone's keeping it peaceful so far. That's good to see. Now, just because he's referencing the NIST report, either one, and if you reference back to that being true all the time, then that could be kind of conflicting. It doesn't necessarily mean everything's true if you're referencing back to one individual point of that. So maybe that's not a legitimate fact, a hard, concrete evidence. But to maybe just change the topic for a minute, Ainsworth had sent me a number of clips. There's probably about 50 of them. I only got, I think, about 7 of them queued up here. So I'm going to play one of them. They're about 20 to 30 seconds long. And then we could maybe get Evan's initial take on what he thinks of that, and then what Ainsworth would say these clips are. So They're really no particular order. I don't even have them labeled, so I'm just going to hit number 1, and we'll see what these 32 seconds bring.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself. Now to go to videotape, the collapse of this building.
Dan Rather.
It's amazing. Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
All right, Evan, now I think Ainsworth point to the Dan Rather speech that's pretty famous among truthers is that...
I've never even heard it, Dutch.